Alright, welcome to your revision sheet video. This is to help you out with your revision, preparing you for the midterm exam. Alright, so first question on the sheet says, which of the graphs represent a direct proportion graph? We know that it's A, and we know the three reasons why it's a direct proportion graph, which is always that it's got to be a straight line graph, in other words linear, passes through the origin, coordinates 0, 0, and the graph must be rising / increasing. Questions 1 and 2 here, you don't have to know how, you don't have to convert to memory or anything. You won't get a question like this, but this will help you going forward, so I put that in anyway. So I've given you the answers for 1, A, B, and C. So the first one is directly proportional. The distance traveled in a car traveling 60 kilometers per hour and the time taken, that's directly proportional, and that's because of this thing here. If it's 60 kilometers per hour, that means every hour you move 60 kilometers, and that is a constant rate, so that's directly proportional. B is not directly proportional because in B we expect as our x variable time, as time decreases for the swimmer, we expect the speed, mix the variables up. We expect as the speed increases, that s increases, time to decrease. The faster you swim, the less time it takes to swim a lap. And then C, cost of a bus ticket and the distance traveled. Well, that's just not how buses work. They're not directly proportional. It's not, the further you go, the more money you pay. Alright, for this I'm going to do A and B, and all you have to do is determine whether the direct linear proportion exists between our two variables. What that means is we are looking for our k value. So I'm going to exclude this coordinate because it starts at the origin in my calculations here. So we know k is y divided by x, so it's going to be 1 divided 1, 3 divided 2, 8 divided by 3, 15 divided by 4. And if it's directly proportional, all of these should have the same k value. So 1 is equal to 1.5, and immediately we can see that we don't have the same k value, and these two are not equal. So this is 6a, not directly proportional. 6b, again we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do y divided by x, and we're going to see if we have the same k value. Again, since I'm going to ignore the point 0, 0 because it has to start at 0, 0 for it to be a direct proportions graph. If it doesn't start at 0, 0, like C over here, then we know it's not directly proportional. So for B, I'm going to do 8 divide 1, 16 divide 2, 24 divide 3, 48 divide 6. And I know from my times table that all of these equal 8, therefore 6b is a direct proportional graph. Sure. I know that a direct proportion relationship exists. between the two variables. Apologize for how disjointed some of these are. It's hard to do it on the computer here like this. Alright, for the following questions, determine which direct proportion exists between the variables. Does not explain why. So, we know, or you should know, that the one that is directly proportional is that one there. And you should know the reasons why it's directly proportional. If you don't, go back to question 1 and have a look at what we said. So, why is it not directly proportional for the others? Well, we see here that for B, haven't started at the origin. So, not at 0, 0. Here we can see that there is a slight curve, so it's not linear. And then D, here we have an X value that increases, so going from 0 to 10, and then our Y variable decreases, we're going from 10 to 0. If it's directly proportional, they must be going in the same direction. In other words, if X increases, Y has to increase. If Y decreases, then X has to decrease. If it's opposites, then it's not directly proportional. Alright, question 10. If a direct linear proportion exists between two variables m and n, fill out the table and explain reasoning. Again, you have to be able to understand that if they're directly proportional, and if a relationship does exist, what I'm asking you to find there is the k value. And we know k value is y divided by x, or in this case n divided by m. And I wrote the long letter. N divided by m. So, to find our missing value, I'm going to take the values that I know, 20, and I'm going to divide it by 5, which gives me 4. Again, I'm going to ignore 0, 0 because that is the origin. If it doesn't start there, we know that it's not directly proportional, or it might not be directly proportional. So if k is 4, we know that y equals k times x, and we know that x is y divided by k. I'm trying to find my n variable, so that's my y variable in this case, so I'm going to multiply my k value of 4 by whatever the x variable is, which is 2. So here we're going to do 2 times 4, that's 8. So, and it's 8. For 11, find ABC. Again, I don't have the origin, so I can't say that these are directly proportional, but all I know is that the question tells me that the tables are directly proportional. So using that knowledge, I know that, again, not yk. If they're directly proportional, that means y divided by x should give me my k value. So I'm going to do 8 divided by 2, which again gives me 4. And then, like we did here, if I've got my x value, to find my y value, I'm going to multiply it by k. So I'm going to take 4, and I'm going to multiply it by 4. I'm going to take 9, multiply it by 4, that gives me 16 here, 36 there. If we're going the other way around, instead of multiply, we're going to divide. So I'm going to do 128 divided by 4, which is 32. So, just to make it clear, A equals 32, B equals 16, C equals 36. I'm gonna make that look like a 6. Alright. For the next questions below, determine the constant of proportionality, which I've told you is K if you've forgotten. Determine the relationship, which is the rule, for the two variables. Determine and justify the questions asked. Alright, let's have a look. Question 12 says, if 2.5 liters of lawn fertilizer will cover an area of 150 meters squared, determine how much fertilizer is needed to cover an area of 800 meters squared. Oh, pardon me. At the same rate. Justify your answer. Alright, I'm gonna do this on the side here. Alright, first thing we need to know is it tells us that 2.5 liters of lawn fertilizer covers an area of 150. So what we know from that is that we know that the amount of liters we have, liters is dependent on area or meters squared. So what that means is L would be our independent, M would meter squared would be our dependent. So we know that, let's see, even I struggle sometimes with understanding which one's my X and Y variable. The way I'm looking at it is every 150 meters squared I need 2.5 liters. So the more area I have, the more fertilizer I need. So I look at it as if I have a direct proportion relationship of Y directly proportional to X, and Y is equal to K times X, then my Y variable, which is area, 150 meters squared, is K times 2.5 liters, or 150 equals K times 2.5. The amount of liters you need depends on the amount of area you have. So my K value is going to be, take 2.5, move it over, which means we're going to do opposite of multiply, this divide. So K is going to be equal to 60. That means using that, oh my god, using that we know X equals K times 1.5. What am I doing? Go away. I know that Y equals K times X, and I know K is 60, so 60X is equal to Y. And if I want to work out in the question what 800 meters squared is. We said before that meters squared would be our y variable. So, and I want to determine fertilizer. So 800 would be equal to 60 times x, which is the amount of fertilizer in liters. So x would equal 800. I'm gonna take times 60 and I'm gonna move it over. That's divide 60, and then x will be equal to 13.33 liters. I'm gonna make that look like a 13 and not a B though. So 13.33 liters of fertilizer. Let's have a look at B. Alright, so B, if Paul paid $68.13 for 45 liters of fill at the same rate, determine how much you would pay for 70 liters. Well, that one's a bit easier because when I know from filling up my car that the cost depends on the number of liters. So if I was to write y proportional to x for B, I know that y equals k times x. I know I have to find my k value first, and I know y is my cost, and that's dependent on the number of liters. So 68 and 13 cents equals k times 45. So again, k is going to be equal to 6, 8 and 13. Sorry, this thing is very sensitive. Divided by, I'm going to take 45 over, so divide 45. So k equals 68, 13 divided 45, what's that? 1.15, sorry, 1.51. So k is 1.51. So I know that y equals k times x, y equals 1.51 times x. Let's see how much. It says here I'm putting 70 liters into the car, so let's zoom back out, come back here. I'm going to replace x with 70 because that's my fuel amount that I'm putting in, and 1.51 times 70 gives me 105.70. It's a cost, so it's in dollars. Alright, now we're going to move on to the similarity part of the revision sheet. And I've got some 3 questions that get us started on it. So question 1 is, what are the 4 tests for similarity? Well, if you remember from your notes, you should have angle, 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 side, 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 side angle side or SAS, and if my pen wants to work, right angle hypotenuse side. So next question, Mr. Harrod is a non-identical twin, which I am. Using the definitions of congruency and similarity, explain whether his brother and him can be described as congruent or similar. So we know from the definition that congruent equals identical in every way, and similar is same in some aspects. So since my brother and I are, key term here is non-identical, we would be similar twins or similar figures. Alright, how many angles in a triangle do we need to determine similarity? That's 2. If we know 2 out of the 3 angles for both of our triangles are the same, then we can, by the law of 180, say that the other angle is the same. So we only need 2 angles in a triangle to determine similarity. Alright, so here you gotta identify the triangles. So identify this pair of similar triangles from the triangles shown. Give a reason for your answer. First thing to note is that they have all got 30-degree angles. So if we go back to our similarity test, we are gonna knock out right angle and SSS because hold on. Alright, back. So we know that if these triangles are similar, it's got to fall into one of these 4 tests. Because we don't have all 3 sides, we know it's not SSS. We don't have all 3 angles, so we know it's not AAAA. We have no right angle symbol, so we know it's not RHS, so they're similar by SAS, or side angle side. But to make sure they're similar from side angle side, we need to have the same K value for our side lengths. So I'm going to compare A and B, and then let's say A and C. So for my K value, I'm going to compare 15 and 10, and that should be in the same ratio. That's 9 to 6, which is 1.5, and the other one is also 1.5. So they're similar. If I look at B, I've got 20 over 15, and I'm going to compare it with 15 over 9. 20 divided by 15 gives us 4 4/3, so 1.33. 15 divided by 9 gives us 1.67. So these two are not equal, so they're not similar. These two are equal, so they are similar. So our similar figures are triangle A and triangle A and triangle B. Alright, we've done these before. I'm just going to do the first two. So in this question, I'm asking you to label each triangle, identify similar pairs, and provide coded reasoning. So I'm going to start by labeling them. So let's call this A, B, C, D, E, F, H. That's not a H, that's an R. G, H, I. Alright, so I can see out of the 3 triangles, A and C both have 40-60 angles. We only need 2 angles in a triangle to determine similarity. So these two will be the similar triangles, and I will write that as triangle ABC is similar to triangle GHI, and my coded reasoning in brackets is going to be angle, angle, angle. Again, I'm gonna label the three triangles. Oh, don't do that again. I'm gonna have A, B, C, and I have X, Y. Wow, that's shocking. Y, Z, P, Q, R. Again, this time I've got side lengths. I don't have any angles, so I know that they're going to be similar from side, but I need to work out which one. So this is for that one. So for 2A, we're going to compare A and B, and then I'm going to compare A and C afterwards. So for A and B, I'm going to take the long side of B compared with the short side, same corresponding side in A. So that 8 is the same corresponding side as 4 on A. So I'm going to do 8 divided by 4 to find my scale factor. 6 divided by 3. And last one is 4 divided by 2. Well, I know that all of these is going to equal 2, so they have the same K value. But I do have to check with A and C as well. So again, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the long side compared with the similar side on A. So 7 to 4. And if that's the same ratio as 5 to 3. And then 4 to 2. Well, 7 divided by 4 is 1.75. This is 1.67, and that's 2. And we can see that none of these K values are the same, so these two triangles can't be similar, which means is A and B, which means triangle ABC is similar to triangle XYZ by side. Computer, you're really making me work for this. Side. Alright, question 8. Similar figures, finding unknown sides. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out my two triangles before I even complete any statement. So I have the small triangle here. So let's draw that one. I've got A, B, C, 2, 4, 3. And then I've got my big triangle. If I highlight that here as A, D, E, and we know that AD is going to be this whole distance here, so 2 plus 4, so that's 6, we've got 4 plus G for this, and we've got DE as F. So there's my two triangles. Now this question, if I gave you just this diagram and I said, hey, find out G and F, that automatically makes it a B standard question, because that's quite complex to do on your own if you don't have that statement given. So right now the statement isn't given, but the question has given you most of it, so you can use that to complete the statement and then find the pronumerals. So the statement says the ratio of AB over AD is the same as BC over a corresponding side. So AB is here over AD is going to be same as BC. So AB is the small triangle, BC is the small triangle, AD is the big triangle. So the similar side, BC is going to be the same as DE. So I'm just going to write DE there. And then we're going to use that same thing. AE is the big triangle, which is 4 plus G. We know that from this. And that means top line is our bottom smaller triangle, so AE is the same as AC. From that statement, we can work out what exactly the variables are. So I'm going to start with finding F first. So I'm going to take one portion of that statement, AB over AD, and I'm going to equate that to BC over DE. Since they're all equal to each other, we can maneuver things around here. So we know that AB is 2 over AD, which is 6. BC is this distance here, 3, and D is this distance here, F. I'm gonna solve this part first. 2 divided by 6 is 0.33. That's equal to 3 over F. We said in class, if our variables on the bottom, we're just gonna switch those two around. So F equals 3 divided by 0.33, which is 9. Alright, now we're gonna maneuver the equation again. Again, all these are equals, so to find G, I'm gonna use what I have. But this time, instead of letting it equal this part, it's AB over AD is also equal to AC over AE. So I'm gonna write that. And again, we know this is 2/6. We know AC is 4. And we know AE is 4 plus G. Again, we know 0.33 is what 2 divided 6 is. And then we know it's equal to 4 plus G. Again, since they're on the bottom, I'm gonna switch those two around. So 4 plus G is going to be equal to 4 over 0.33. I'm just going to switch them. And then I'm going to do that on my calculator. If I don't remember what our answer from class was, 12.12. And then to get G, I'm going to take plus 4 and I'm going to move it over. Opposite of plus is take. So we're going to take away 4 here. And that's 8.12. So there's G. Again, because the question has given us this complete the statement part, this is the C standard. But in your exam, if you get, say, this diagram without part A, that's when it becomes the B standard. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to leave question 9 alone. You can have a go at that. And I'm going to move on to question 17. So question 17, let's first read it. It says a string 50 meters long is pegged to the ground and tied to the top of the flagpole. It just touches mass on the top of the head. Mass is 1.5 meters tall and 5 meters away from the point where the string is held on the ground. Show that the height of the flagpole is 14.37. So, a few things to note. First of all, we have our height here. It tells you that the height of the flagpole is 14.37. We gotta prove that h equals 4.37. So again, if I take my highlighter and not have the big one, I can highlight this little triangle here. I'm gonna draw that. So here's the little triangle. This distance is 5 meters. This is 1.5. If there's a right angle there, there'll be a right angle here because they're similar figures. And then I've got the big triangle. Let's do that in purple because purple's a cool color. I'm gonna take that. Ooh, that was cool. Did not think that would happen. And then we know this distance. We know that h in the question is 14.37. So I have to pause the video and think about this for a second because it's something I'm missing. And what we know that h is 14.37 from the question. What we don't know is this distance here. So I'm going to call that x. So this distance on our purple triangle is x plus 5. So before we can work out similarity, we need to know what x is first. So we're gonna have to do what we did before. We're gonna compare our big triangle with our little triangle. So I'm gonna start by putting A, B, C here, and my little triangle I'm gonna call this, if I don't move it around, D, E, F. And I'm going to compare the base of my big triangle AC, and I'm going to compare it with the height of my little triangle AB, and that should be in the same ratio as DE on my little triangle. Sorry, D, not DE. wrong letter, df, because df is the base, over de, because I'm trying to work out what x is. We know that AC is x plus 5. We know AB is 14.37 because that's the height. DF is 5. DE is 1.5. Alright, so I'm going to get x plus 5, 14.37. I'm just going to leave that part there for a second and do 5 divided 1.5. That's 3.33. To get x plus 5 by itself, I'm going to move 14.37 over. I'm going to take divided by that, move it over. So now I'm going to have 3.33 times 14.37, which gives me 47.9. To get x by itself, I'm going to take plus 5, move it over, which means 47.9. I'm going to take away 5, which is 42.9. Right, that's what it looks like, the 9. So x equals 42.9. Alright, now that I know x equals 42.9, and that means I know, give you a second to have a look at that. So I know x is 42.9, I know x plus 5 is 47.9 here. So I'm going to go back to my big triangle and I'm going to replace this. I'm going to replace this with 47.9 just for the basis of this question. Because in the question I want to show that the height is 14.37. So this time I'm going to redo my similarity problem, but I'm going to work out h. So I'm going to do AC over AB equals DF over DE, but this time I know AC is 47.9 over AB. This time I'm trying to find h, so I'm going to put h there, over 5 over 1.5. My god, this thing's annoying. 1.5. Computer. Laptop. And some technical difficulty with the stylus. Okay. Please stop. That's 3.33. Yes. That's going to be equal to 47.9 divided by h. H is on the bottom, so I'm going to switch these two over. So 47.9 divided by 1. What the? Divided by 3.33 equals h. So now if I do this calculation on the calculator, I'm assuming I should get 14.37 as the answer. It'd be really bad if it wasn't right. And I've got 14.38. because they've rounded up using decimal places, so roughly that's approximately the correct answer. There's just a bit of rounding going on that makes that 14.38, not 14.37. Oh boy. Now without even making it an 8th standard, I feel like this question, with all the working out and things you have to do, would be an 8th standard, so keep that in mind. And that's everything on your revision sheet. You've got 2 lessons in class to go through everything, so hopefully this video will help if you are studying at home by yourself, which I highly recommend you do. Also, if you remember, Cream and Soda, Bundaberg, that's our sponsor. Please go buy some. Really helping the YouTube channel out. That's all for now. I'll see you next time. Bye.